is explained in the ancient yoga wisdom texts that we are never free from desires. Desires are our constant, eternal companion as long as we have material existence. So desires are permanent to our material existence. For example, say Ramananda Prabhu has a desire to have his beautiful Nissan car. He had a desire to have the car and he got the car. And then now he maybe has a desire to wish he got a better car. Maybe he wants to get a BMW. And then, he'll drive, when that desire is fulfilled, then maybe he'll want to get a Maserati. So in this way, desires are a continuous cycle of life. We can never be free from desires. So please, my dear friends, my dear family, please understand, don't try to shut out the desires. And desires has many, many sources. One of the common sources of desires are desires provided to us by our senses. You won't believe, I got this scarf because a friend of mine, I saw he had it and he looked very comfortable and happy in it. So I had the desire, maybe I should get this scarf. So I fulfilled the desire of having this scarf. So you'll be surprised to know everything that we have, those are desires that has been given to us, that we have acquired through our sensory exposures and experiences in this world. The more we visit the world, the more we travel the world, the more we see things, the more we taste, the more we smell, the more we hear, the number of desires continuously increase. And nowadays, you do not even have to go anywhere. You can just sit in your couch and you have a beautiful TV screen. All your material desires will be provided while you're sitting beautifully eating potato chips and hummus and watching TV. All the desires will be given to you. And you may be surprised that you don't even need a television anymore. You have a beautiful hand device in your hand called a cell phone, and the whole world is in your hand, and all the desires are simply provided to you with this beautiful little device in your hands. And then we run around, work hard, try and fulfill all those desires. So the question Ramananda Prabhu asks is, should we pursue all our desires? And a yogi answer to that would be, you can never fulfill all your desires. Do you want to spend another 1,000,000 lifetimes fulfilling all the desires that we have? This is the question that I ask all of you. Now that you know that desires are never fulfilled and will never fulfilled, and they are permanent and eternal companion, should you try to fulfill all those material desires? So the sages explain to us that since our desires are never going to be fulfilled, it is our permanent companion, why not dovetail our desire to increase the quality of our desires? So what I mean is that the desires that we have, those are desires that is given to us by our senses and our mind. Those desires are the translations of our purest, innermost desires of the heart. So it's important to understand The reason our desires are never fulfilled in the material world is because we are looking for something that is permanent and that is eternal and that is eternally blissful. You know, I like to watch National Geographic videos, and I learn a lot about nature and animals, and I understand the universal connectivity of all species of life. And I
Et la nature.
remember that it is a story of a wildebeest. Yeah, it's like a little mini, it's in the family of four-legged animals, like a buffalo, has horns, but they're not
Okay.
deers, they're not buffaloes, they're somewhere in between. And I remember they did a whole documentary on a little baby wildebeest that survived every single odd difficulties that it was placed in front of him. And all he was looking for was his mother so he could be nourished by his mother's milk. And there's millions and millions of wildebeest migrating from one part of Africa to another part. And he was simply trying to find his mother. Mother is his source of happiness and joy and food. And he just kept following the herd and getting lost and crying for his mother. So this is something that happens to us in our life. We are looking for that eternal spiritual connection. We are looking for something that is permanent in our life. We're looking for that true love, eternal true love. We're looking for that eternal joy, eternal happiness. And because we're looking for that, and our mind has translated that desire by connecting it to different material pleasures, we remain unfulfilled. So the desire is continuously with us. So therefore, the desires in the material world, translated by the mind, are desires that if we try to fulfill them, we will continue trying life after life. So the sages, ancient yogic sages, are explaining to us that we have to give up material desires and replace it with spiritual desires. Spiritual means the desire of your heart, desires that are permanent, and it is connected to the spiritual nature of our being. And you will notice the spiritual desires are generally always connected with doing good in the world, good for others, and is connected to serving others, loving others, and is not very self-centered. So when we have those desires that are spiritual in our heart, and we pursue those desires, you will start to notice a feeling of fulfillment in your life. Those desires have a higher purpose. It is greater than yourself. And those desires are called the desires of the soul, or the heart desires. And when we pursue those desires, those are called the desires of the heart, or of the spiritual self. And in one word, it's called dharma. And when you live from that space of desire, it is called living a life of purpose. It is a life of meaning. And those desires are actually what sustains you and keeps you joyfully involved with life and connected rather than being disconnected. So he's saying, do not give up your desires, but you purify those desires with your spiritual purpose in life and make those desires connected to your purpose in life. And when you pursue those desires,
Et
then
lorsque,
you're living a life from the space of fulfillment and the space of joy. So there is desires from the mind and the senses that are binding us and keeping us connected to our material existence. And then there's desires from our heart that is liberating you, and it is freeing you from the clutches of your mind desires. So the more you are connected and centered in your heart, the more your desires will be pure and will guide you in the proper direction. See, material desires they're going to be unlimited. So therefore, the intelligence plays a very important role in our spiritual journey. They say that when you put boundaries around your material desires, then you'll start to see clarity in your spiritual desires. That is the only time spiritual life grows, when you put boundaries around material desires. There is no suppression of material desires, but it is put in a container. It is contained. There is a fence around it. What does this fence look like? For example, as a family man, you have to have a house. You have to have vehicles. You have to have food on the table. These are our fundamental functional needs that must be there for each and every one of us. But then, if we don't put boundaries, then what will happen is that your one house is not good enough. Then you'll get two houses.
Une
Maybe
deuxième
two
maison.
houses are not big enough, then you'll get 3, 4, 5, and you'll just keep acquiring more and more properties. And very soon you'll realize that you have hundreds of properties and you have acquired a big problem and how to now take care of them. Because the more you have, the more things you have, the more things you have to take care of. And so therefore, your relationship in life is completely drained by things and more things, and how to take care of those things, and how to protect those things, how to make sure those things are properly secured. So that's why the sages are explaining over-endeavoring for material success is an impediment for spiritual growth. It never says you should not endeavor. It says over-endeavoring. That means going beyond the boundaries of your material functional needs. You go out and excessively try to acquire fame, name, wealth, recognition, then it's an over-endeavor. It is normal to desire and to acquire things. Over-endeavor, then that is something that is an activity that is propelled by the mind and the senses. And so therefore, a yogi is always thinking how to be satisfied with whatever he or she has, and trying to find the deepest feelings of gratitude with whatever is provided to them. I've noticed in the lives of many, many saintly personalities in this lineage of bhakti, they are really, really focused on understanding their spiritual desires and their spiritual aspirations, which is their primary focus. Sometimes I wonder, even in my simple life, I travel and I do so many events and so many things that I don't think that people in the professional world has had so much exposure. It's like the CEOs of companies. How much do they travel? How much do they interact with diverse people and have diverse experiences in the world? I think I have more experience and exposure of diversity and experience in the world than company CEOs. And I never endeavored for this. It is something that when you operate from Dharma, all that is provided to you. If you look at your own spiritual master, Ramananda Prabhu, he traveled around the world more than many CEOs in the world. He had more experience than most CEOs in the world. And, he was just, wherever he went, he was surrounded by material opulence and spiritual opulence. His life was just complete, filled with abundance. And so, therefore, we have to be understanding of the fact that when we focus on our spiritual growth, our world will look different and it'll change very, very drastically. And that is what we want. We want that spiritual experience. We want the universal cooperation. We want the universe to corral and embrace us and hold us close. And
This is
those are all signs of abundance. So, yeah, there's a huge difference in terms of, whether or not we should pursue material desires and what we get out of it, or we should pursue spiritual desires and what is the outcome of that. And we all have access to mentors and spiritual teachers in our lives that we can always run our ideas and our desires through to see, hey, is this a good desire to have? Should I be aspiring to drive a Lamborghini in the next 5 years? Or should I desire to be happy? Or should I desire for fulfillment in life? Is that we do not suppress our material desires, but we simply put boundaries around our material desires so our spiritual heart can grow. If we spend most of our time fulfilling the desires of our mind and our senses, when will we ever have time for our heart's desires? Why should most of our time be spent on fulfilling the desires of our mind and our senses? And why should our heart be neglected? So these are the questions that the sages ask us to ask ourselves.